How is it going, everyone? I hope you guys are doing well, and we are back on Anime Rangers X for the usual update review. This update was Berserk, so that got me pretty excited, but the update itself is pretty decent, I would say. Pretty average. Definitely better than the Dragon Ball Z update, but there's still many issues that I want to go over. And before I go into the main content, let's just go over what was going on the release of this update. If you were there, you already know, but basically, when the update dropped, there were many shutdowns, so many bugs, there's community outrage in the Discord, as per usual. It was just chaos, and honestly, for a good reason, because one of these major bugs was with Gohan's Divine Trial. Now, if you weren't aware, Gohan had a quest step that made you complete 35 rifts, and that sounds insane, right? Especially for how long that takes and how many rifts that actually is. So the devs listened and removed the quest step. So if you joined early on the update, you could complete this quest for free. Basically, the quest was already done and you can just claim an android head. So some people got that, including me, which I'm very glad. But a little while after that, the devs reset the quest for everyone. Apparently, this was because removing the rift quest step would break the entire thing. So they had to reset the whole thing. And that upset a lot of people, and for a good reason. This quest, even though it's a decent progression system, it takes a while to do, okay? And if you were close, if maybe you were 7 out of 8, and then your quest just gets randomly set back to 0. Like, that's stupid. And there was little to no communication when this was happening. They were just worried about locking down the Discord so people could stop complaining. But another bug, I guess you could say, was one of the codes that, gets dropped for every update was supposed to only give 100 rerolls, but it instead gave 1,000, okay? I wasn't lucky enough to, claim it before this bug was fixed, but a decent amount of people did, and, good for you if you did. But, when this happens, people are obviously going to start complaining if they didn't claim it in time, and that's what was happening. And the testers were kind of confused why people were getting upset, and it's pretty simple. You have one majority that got the code when it was bugged, and the other that, vice versa, they didn't get the code. So, obviously, that majority that didn't get the code is going to start screaming, and, give me the code, give me the code. Like, it's bound to happen. Nothing you can really do about it, except, fixing it before it goes into the game, okay? I'll go more into concerns I have later on. I'm gonna start getting into the actual content of this update, what I think about it. But again, this was a Berserk update, so we got 4 new Berserk units and 1 Dr. Stone unit, I believe, which is in a leaderboard I'll go over in a sec. But of course, we got Guts and his Berserker Armor Evolution. Really cool unit. It's pretty good, obviously, like most units that come out. We got Skull Knight, and I think the dev team was taking a big inspiration from 2016 Berserk, because this model is horrid. It is awful. I'm not going to lie. It looks like you took a piece of tinfoil and covered him in it. I'm going to be real. He's also pretty decent, but, we also got Griffith. Now, this is actually a very cool thing I think they did with Griffith. If you're not aware, there is now another Divine Trial where you can get Griffith, and this actually isn't too hard at all. You should see it on the screen, but there's actually some cool little things you have to do. Of course, you have to get Skull Knight, you have to get Guts, you have to complete 50 Eclipse Portals. It sounds like a lot. It kind of is, but it's a lot less tedious than what you have to do in the other Divine Trials. But you also have things like beat Tier 3 Eclipse Portal with 1 unit, or beat Tier 2 or 3 Eclipse Portal with 3 units, all with Crying Behelit Souls, which I'll explain in a sec. But, just some cool little things you have to do for Griffith. But that's not actually the coolest part. When you complete this quest, you get this Darkness Falcon token. And basically what you can do is you can either choose the quote-unquote good Griffith, or the quote, I shouldn't even say quote-unquote, the bad Griffith. You either choose the good Griffith or the bad Griffith, which I think is super cool, and I will have to do another one of these Divine Trials to get the good Griffith, because I chose the bad one. To go a little more in depth, the bad Griffith is called Falcon of Darkness. Obviously, it's the femto version of him, and he actually has 2 different, not evolutions, but kind of 2 different modes. So every time you equip him, you will get a pop-up. So you can either do the Falcon of Darkness, Darkness Merged, or you can do Falcon of Darkness, just regular. So this Falcon of Darkness is more of, he's the only unit on field and he's doing a bunch of damage. And Falcon of Darkness is kind of a mix where you can use other units, but he's also giving buffs and doing a lot of damage, right? He becomes a little more support. So that's your choice. You can change to either one of these anytime you want, as long as you have the femto version of him. Obviously, you just need to re-equip him each time, which not too big of a deal. Now, the 4th unit, like I was mentioning, is the good Griffith, and I don't have him because I have to do the Divine Trial quest again, so I don't know what he does, but I just think that's a cool concept of completing this Divine Trial and then you choosing which version you want of him. But, moving on, we got new story and ranger stages. Should be some gameplay of the story stages, at least, or the ranger stages. I think this Lake of Sacrifice looks awful. It's not a very good map, at least look-wise. I get it's only supposed to be the lake. Like, even in the manga, there's not very much surrounding it, and kind of bare bones, which adds to the atmosphere a little bit, but I just don't think it looks good in game. I'm sorry. Of course, with these ranger stages, you're going to get portals from them, you know, like previous updates. And these eclipse portals are going to be your main source of materials, at least for evoing these characters. You get ashes, you get a broken hilt for guts, you get crying behelit souls, which is actually, like I mentioned earlier, it's for one of the divine trials for Griffith. You have to have 3 units that have this behelit soul equipped and complete the portal. And you can also get Skull Knight from this. I just want to mention real quick, with these ashes and crying behelit soul designs, it's like they just put a black orb and just slapped a PNG on there. Okay, they literally looked up, they googled behelit, and then they put it on the black circle in the background. A little lazy, maybe I'm seeing things wrong and I'm going crazy, but yeah, dude, I don't know the design team sometimes. But I will say though, the portal does look very nice. The portal map, of course, is the Eclipse. Should be some gameplay on screen again. I think this looks really cool, and I like the atmosphere a lot, and I think it looks way better than the Lake of Sacrifices. We got a new mission tab, and this is kind of like Divine Trials, but just aimed towards, I think, getting newer players up to speed. There's an easy, normal, and hard quest. I haven't completed the easy quest yet. It's pretty simple, just obtaining a mythic unit, beating any tier 3 portal, and evolving Naruto from his rare form to his legendary form. You get some pretty good rewards. I mean, 4 soul fragments, 100 rerolls, and the soul catcher. So not too bad. And of course, these rewards go up as you complete the quests. I don't know if they can be repeated. I'll have to figure that out, or somebody will. But another thing to grind out, and especially something to help newer players get on their feet. And the next thing to go over is we finally got a dungeon reset. I think this definitely needs to happen at least every couple of updates, because you will just eventually get stuck on a high floor and you can't go anywhere else. Unless you go down in difficulties, but then you get less rewards, right? It's just not really worth doing it. Well, it might be, but you know, either way, the dungeon should reset every couple updates, I feel. We got a bunch of new souls, which we got the Domain of Love Soul, Soul of Pure Agony, Soul of Infinite Riches, and Crying Behelit Soul, which is from the portal, which I already went over. But the first 3 are kind of just more crazy versions of already good souls, I believe. But yeah, they're basically just more crazy versions of like Soul of the Riches, Soul of the Undying, and Soul of the Fire. So that's pretty cool, I guess. And finally, at least with content-wise, we finally got a tournament reset. I've been saying this for like months now, that like the old dev team, they put in tournaments and they just forgot, they left it there. So I'm glad the new dev team finally stepped in and did something about this mode. Hopefully it resets this time. Of course, I haven't gotten far at all. My team was whack. I still have to experiment a little bit, but hopefully I can get a decent score maybe. But I'm glad this one is also on a timer, because again, as I've said in my previous videos regarding tournaments, there were people that had over day-long runs. They had like 30 something hours of just a run, because it was an infinite mode, right? So you could go on for as long as it took. So I'm glad there's a time limit on this, make it a little shorter and, you know, actually worth doing. There's also a traitless mode, which is nice. There wasn't a traitless mode beforehand, so I'm glad this was added. This should be any tournament in any TD game that has a trait system. I think that's pretty obvious. When it comes to quality of life, we actually got some pretty big changes. When it comes to stats, we got a increase in maximum yen and yen generation upgrades. So maximum yen goes up to level 150 and yen generation goes up to level 75. Again, remove the rifts from Gohan quests, only with the downside of resetting everybody's quest if they didn't get the android head when it was bugged in the beginning of the update. Apparently, they nerfed rifts, so new total is now 10. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's like waves of enemies that spawn. Anybody can let me know if you happen to know. Added an easier option to limit break units. I think I have some footage of this, but basically you can just press one button and one of your units goes to the max limit break you can afford, which is very nice. It was really annoying just clicking that one button forever, right? So you can do this easier now. Added a new UI in game showing what each element type does. This is cool. I don't know how much people pay attention to this. I'm not gonna lie. I don't. Looks like I can click on it in like Yoriichi, for example, but I don't know if this was in the game before. I don't know if there's a whole different menu of all the elements, but either way, I'm glad there's a description in game. This should be the case for like any sort of mechanic, enemy weaknesses, or anything. There should be a clear description. And finally, added hover descriptions for trait icons when clicking on a unit in inventory while in the lobby. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's cool. I'll go over my concerns in a sec, but a pretty, I say, safe update, because after the disastrous Dragon Ball Z update, they really needed to redeem themselves with this update. And I think it's just, it's a little bland, I would say, but I think the units are definitely becoming cooler, and the way you can get them is nice and, you know, rewarding for when you complete that trial, at least for Griffith. And I think the dev team definitely just took the safer route when it comes to content, because it's only portals. It literally is only portals, and I guess there's still the boss event, which is that's not new, but yeah, content wise, it's pretty AFK heavy, which I think most people enjoy. I've kind of disregarded the fact that most people that play this game just want it to be AFK heavy, and I get it. I'm not gonna lie, I get it. If they lean more towards that, which I think the majority of players want a more AFK game, I mean, this is what this game's been ever since it released, right? So that is what it is. I don't really have any thoughts about that. But to finally go over my concerns with this game or just complaints, I think number one, communication needs to be worked on, especially with higher up developers. I get the balancers, they do a decent, you know, Alex and Adam, they do a pretty decent job when it comes to listening to people, but I feel like there's just always there's always something that's wrong, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because of weekly updates and there's just not enough time to completely sort everything out, so they just push things out. And I'm talking about like the team as a whole, not like pinpointing out on specific people. But sometimes I wonder for games like this, if weekly updates are even a good thing to begin with. Maybe take an extra couple days like every week to make sure the update is fine and completed, because when there's these major bugs on release and just throughout the update, it's annoying to play. It makes me not want to play. An example of this was in the Dragon Ball Z update, the Dragon Ritual. I did that, right? If you choose power at the end of that, you're supposed to get Omega Shenron. I'm sure you know this because most of you probably have him, but I didn't get him. I got a perfect bio android or whatever his name is. And that was bugged. Multiple people were complaining about that, or, you know, voicing that it was bugged. And I didn't have any proof that I got the wrong unit, right? So I have to do that ritual quest again, and I don't even think it's fixed. Maybe it is fixed, I'm not sure, but it makes me feel like anytime I'm gonna get a unit from a quest or something, I should be recording my screen in case something goes wrong, so I can send it to somebody to look it over and maybe get a rollback on my account or something, so I can actually get the unit that I want. And that's just a bad precedent to set for people if they don't trust that your game's fundamental systems are going to work. The players should feel safe that they're going to get the right rewards, and that communication is clear, and that they're not going to get random stuff reset. Little side note, I know people were mad that the summer event was gone. One of the testers apparently said it was going away soon. I don't know when it is. I'm not blaming it on them that they took it out. I didn't see any announcement beforehand. I feel like they should have at least announced that, hey, this is going away. Make sure you buy everything like a day or two before the update drops, because if you tell people 2 weeks before the update drops, hey, this is going away in 2 weeks, people aren't going to remember, and then you can't really blame them for that. Like, it's not something you're really going to remember all the time. So I think if the dev team just communicates with people in a shorter time frame of like when things are going away, like the summer event, for example, in the future, that'll just be a lot better, and people will just remember and not complain about that. Of course, there's always gonna be people that complain, but just less people complain. Okay, I'm gonna stop it there, but again, I think communication definitely needs to be worked on. Maybe consider taking, I mean this, maybe consider taking a couple, 1 or 2 days before an update releases, even if it's not weekly anymore, to make sure the game works and everything is working fine. I honestly mean that. If it means that it's more playable on release, I think that needs to be taken into consideration, and maybe compensation for that Gohan quest. That's all I can really say right now. Update was all right, definitely better than the Dragon Ball Z, a little bland, but cool units overall. And again, yeah, definitely more on the safer side. But hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm all over the place, but let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.